Welcome to today's episode of the Mad Podcast. I'm Matt Turck from FirstMark, and today I sit down with Daniel Dines, the co-founder of UiPath. In the first part of this conversation, Daniel recounts UiPath's unlikely journey from humble beginnings in a small rental department in Romania.
It was like 5 people in the company, 5 developers. I think at most we made like 200K per year.
To becoming the global leader in enterprise automation that we know today, a public company with over 1.3 billion in revenue. If you've never heard that story before, it's truly an inspiring tale of perseverance, vision, and global success.
The dream was independent. We had a meeting at some point. We said to ourselves, we cannot just do this thing because we ruin our careers. So we had to think globally. We built a product in the search of a market, actually. We knew that we built something that is remarkable.
Now, of course, this being the Mad Podcast, in the second half of this conversation, we also went into the nitty-gritty of RPA and AI and the future of enterprise automation.
Generative AI, it's in a way the missing piece in RPA and even broadly in automation. You cannot use an LLM in an enterprise production in an autonomous fashion. First, we will have to have these digital assistants that work under people's supervision.
It's a really great episode packed with inspiring stories, AI insights, and valuable lessons on building a successful tech company. Please enjoy my conversation with Daniel. The founding story of UiPath is such a great story. I cannot resist the temptation to start the conversation with that. But it all started in your apartment in Bucharest in 2005, is that correct?
Yeah, Matt, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to tell the story. Because I said it multiple times, but every time I remember something, which is kind of fun. It didn't start in my apartment, but it was started in a very small rented apartment, which is, I think, the equivalent of a garage in the
Romanian version.
The Romanian version of a garage.
And you had just come back from Seattle, right? You were at Microsoft for a few years.
Yeah, I worked 5 years at Microsoft, and I had the craziest idea to start a company, and even crazier to go back to Romania to do a company. So obviously, I had no idea about how to build a company. I was a software engineer, and like most engineers, I thought that just building a good product, even without customer input or anything, would be enough and people will jump on it.
How hard can it be?
Yeah, exactly.
So where did the initial idea come from?
Well, we had some experiments on the product side, but they were mostly in the consumer part of. So we tried consumer. I thought it's way easier than to just go into big enterprise. I had no idea how to enter. So we built a really small tool initially that was like a dictionary, something providing quick access to online resources from your desktop computer. So like if you long clicked on any word on your computer, we would understand what you are doing, extract the word behind the mouse cursor, and then offer a pop-up to search, to translate, to do some stuff. It's actually way more difficult than you imagine to understand the context of every application and how they draw text and everything that's there. So we built pretty sophisticated, it was a system programming to intercept all the Windows APIs that an application is using. And we were rendering the text, in memory, and we figure out. So it was pretty interesting. This is why we are doing in the first place.
Yeah.
First, we have started with this idea. Let's intercept API calls, and then let's build a product around it.
Yeah.
And the product was not successful in a real sense. We had like maybe even 100,000 users at peak, which was not bad. But what was interesting, they led us to first real customer.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a small software company based on US. And they were doing some kind of integration software for credit unions. So what they actually were doing were to read the screens of these cash machines that a teller they were using back in the days, like your speaking 2005, 2006, and read the number of bills and coins on the screen and then to align it with their banking software. They didn't communicate. So it was a very early form of RPA, actually. And the funny story is so we monetized that product, that we launched, the consumer product. Maybe in 1 year, we got maybe $100, $200. And this guy, wrote to me and said, look, I'm not interested in the product itself, but I'm interested in the engine that reads the text of the screen. Would you license it? And I said, yeah, why not? Because we build a product, in a good engineering fashion with layers of software. So it was very easy for me to give him a component, just decoupled, to give the software to him. And he asked me, how much do you want for a license? And I thought, look, I had no idea. So on a hunch, I said like $10,000. And next day, basically, he wired the money without any negotiation, nothing. So I said to myself, wow, this is an avenue actually that we can go on. So, and from that tiny library, we have started to extend it to add, besides text capability, to understand also what's on the screen, like all the controls, how they are related to them. And then we have added ability to interact with screen, to click and type on the screens. And they were initially you had to be a developer to use our library. So for a few years, until like 2013, we were basically an OEM SDK business. Not very lucrative. I think at most we made like 200K per year, which is kind of enough for it. It was like 5 people in the company, 5 developers.
Yeah.
Basically, in Romania, you could make a living out of it, and we were living in a way the dream. It was independent, people were buying my software, and it was completely bootstrapped, the business. But in the same time, it was kind of an end game. For my career, I stopped being a developer and I did all sorts of things, product support, marketing, legal, advertising, everything, even paying the salaries was really in my hands. So I remember that we had a meeting at some point and we said to ourselves, we need to put a deadline to us. We cannot just do this thing because we ruin our careers. And so it was like 2011 when we had like a death sentence, on us. And then we said, let's do it 2 more years. And let's build something more interesting on the top of our little product. And that was the moment when we enter into low-code, no-code automation development.
And that was a fundamental insight to go from a developer tool to a tool for business people?
Not really for business people, but a tool for...
Or easier to use?
Easier to use by, I would say, by technical business users. I think that might be a more accurate term. This is one of the pillars of our success. We tapped into a rather large population of people that are not necessarily pro devs, but they have a basic programming knowledge, and they can easily be trained into our technology and they can deliver automations. Because an automation is a species of application development, but it's way simpler than to deliver a full-blown application. You don't have to understand so many concepts about reusability and security and all this, the whistles and the bells of true engineering. And it's enough to have maybe a few software architects, RPA software architects, and then you have many people that can really deliver, the body of the work. So tapping into this population was essential because it's pretty large, and it's it's not that expensive. So made the entire proposition of delivering automation feasible.
And then when that happened, so when you added no code, things started accelerating.
Yeah. So we started that no code journey in 2011. Took us like 2 years to finish the product. And to our...
and 2 years because you had to create abstraction layers
yes,
to hide the complexity?
Yes, because, from an SDK, basically to going to a product, to a finished product, like we call it like studio, but it's a finished product that one can use and build an automation and run it. Mm-hmm. Initially, it was something that you can run on the same machine. It's like Visual Studio or Eclipse or something. It was an IDE, basically, dedicated to build automations. Mm-hmm. So it took us some time to build it, but it was, I think, a pretty refined one and really good state of the art for low code, no code technology. Even today, most of the way our product works is based a lot on the ideas, that we incubated during these 2 years.
And then, so then the big acceleration, because like the one of the most fascinating part of the story is exactly that, like the fact that you were bootstrapped for a very long period of time, and then there was like this crazy acceleration of like from 2000. I guess 2012 to the IPO.
Kind of, I would say the acceleration has started in 2014.
14.
A bit. We launched that product in 2013, but our base of developers couldn't care less about this one because it was not for them, actually. But the word got out a little bit, and I think good timing is essential, especially in the beginning of a category when nobody really knows who are the players. And I said this story multiple times, but it was really a phone call, from a guy sitting in India, in Chennai, that basically accelerated our journey into the RPA category. At that point, I didn't know what RPA was, and the term was coined like a year before. But interestingly enough, this guy was searching on the internet on a low-code automation platform because he was annoyed by his current provider not being flexible enough. So he was looking on something that was visually appealing, so looked like low-code, no-code to build automations. And we were the only one that were really, a nice game in town. So he called us, and it's kind of funny because he used an Yahoo address and I was in charge of support. So I was reading the tickets that we were getting, and he said he needs a demo of the product, and my first inclination was to just ignore it because it didn't look like a business. Yeah. So, but then I had really again like this hunch, maybe it's something. So I have asked a developer, because we are all developers, to take this guy through a demo. 1 hour later, she came to me, the developer, and told me, Daniel, this is actually something very interesting. He works for a big company. Apparently, you have to talk to him. And I talked to him right away. So we were on Skype at that time. And first thing, he asked me, what do you feel about this? How do you compare with this company that they were using? I said, man, I have no idea who they are. Let me search. So yeah. I was searching as, I was talking. And it came this kind of boring corporate page, like with investors' careers. And I don't know, it looks like a big company. We are just a tiny startup. I don't think how we can compare. So, but anyway, it was good because it was authentic. So he kind of liked it. And we continued the discussion. And in the end, his company offer us to do paid POC to kind of build, competitive automations that they were in parallel with the other company. And then I sent most of my company, 3 people, to Chennai. They worked like 3 months to build the automation. And that was the big aha moment when we understood this is actually quite a big market.
Mm-hmm.
This is the pain that we are looking for. We build a product in the search of a market, actually, but unexpectedly we found the market, which is I would not recommend to anyone do this, but that happened. We were developers. We built something that we really enjoyed. It was nice. We knew even before we had discussions, we need a little bit of luck. We knew that we built something that is remarkable.
Did they effectively become your design partner, which is
yes,
like now the cool term now?
They were, yeah, exactly. I didn't know the term until
that probably
recently.
did not exist, right? That feels like a very recent term.
Yeah, so they were our first design partners. But then from then, they were like a BPO company, but with a lot of technology. After them, we've become known within the BPO circles. Like Capgemini and Cognizant were next design partners. And they were even more important than the initial company. Bigger companies, they knew in that moment that this is going to be instrumental for the manual work automation. Because you know how BPOs are structured in a very long-term contracts, but every year they have to deliver certain percentage of savings. Mm-hmm. So they initially start with some kind of business process engineering, which is pure, it's working on a flow chart and understanding how you can remove unnecessary trips in the process. But after that, automation is the only game in town.
Yeah.
And this one, emulating how people work, it worked brilliantly for BPOs. Because what's interesting, many times they don't have access to the systems, to the customer systems directly. They use something like remote access, like Citrix, to get. So they had to automate applications and processes strictly from a user point of view. Mm. And that was a thing that we mastered really well at that time, was this computer vision approach. So it was really a nice integration between low code and computer vision. So basically you can just on a remote screen that comes from Citrix. So it's pure image based. And you can really record what we are doing with understanding the objects on the screen and pictures. And so it was, I remember a moment when I also realized something, it's dramatically better than anyone from the competition standpoint. It's, I showed this to some people. They were actually experts in our competition at that point. And when they were totally speechless, because what I showed them to work in, like, I don't know, in front of, with the recorder, like everyone could have done it. It was like, I don't know, 3 minutes or something, press run and it works. It would have taken days in other software. Using very cumbersome process, it's days.
So you were sort of AI from the beginning, from that perspective,
yes,
computer vision.
We were AI from the beginning. It's true, in the beginning we were using some AI libraries. But it was the emergence of this one of the first good library was this OpenCV from Intel. Yeah. And we use heavily that one. But the key was to pack it with low code, no code, with automations, with all this that we have in the OCR, that we have our own stuff. So it was, but the integration was so nicely done. It was really way ahead of anyone else.
Yeah, it's such an incredible story. And of course, there's always survivorship bias in those stories. But, this idea of like you're a Romanian company and you get a call from an Indian company and you decide to take on the opportunity and just sort of leverage what almost fate gave you is fascinating, right? In a world where like a lot of the advice is like be very deliberate and you only need this kind of customer.
Yeah.
But like the fact that you let yourself embrace the opportunities is so interesting.
But we were waiting for that opportunity for like
4 years.
8 years.
Yeah.
But
then you were able to recognize it when it
Yes.
showed up. Yeah. And then so the BPOs, and then that was the beginning of the acceleration, and then that's when you started raising money.
Yeah, we raised money in July 2015.
Yep.
But I have started to. My first round was the longest by a far margin. So I met our first investors in March 2014, and it took such a long time. First, it's very risky. I think it was to invest in a nobody startup in Romania. So we got to know each other. Then
Was it Early Bird or
Early Bird?
Okay.
Yeah,
Early Bird East. I guess maybe now today they are Early Bird East.
Digital East.
Digital
I
East.
think it's called.
Yes.
Yeah, it was kind of like a franchise of Early Bird. They gave us a term sheet in August 2014, but it was so onerous to the standard kind of terms that I couldn't even myself take it. So I started a long negotiation process. Well, not to be the thing, but I'm sure they don't regret that they sign it, but they ended up signing common shares in the end. So we started to see such a nice acceleration, even so 14 and 15. So it's talking with big clients. Even, can you imagine companies like Kaiser Permanente left voice messages to us? Guys, please contact us. So at some point, with all the negotiation, I ended up telling them, guys, if we invest, you have to decide now when you invest common shares. And this guy said yes, but we just want the only provision is that we'll get the same terms as next round.
Yeah.
And it was smart.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah. Well, that was it sounded like a very well negotiated and almost certainly the best decisions they ever made as investors. So that's amazing. And then there was Excel for the A.
Excel was for the A. But there were a few funds that passed on us.
Yeah.
And it was interesting, not valuation, but it was they couldn't accept to leave me in the control of the company. And I was pretty adamant that, guys, that gives me the freedom to act. The moment we'll start having an independent board, I will take my political animal out of me. And this is not how you build a company. To us, it worked. Because even today, I have a controlling stake in UiPath. And why it worked? Because I realized very early on that the people on our board are actually better than most of the people we can hire. Actually better than all of them, especially in the initial stages. So this is why I opened completely the company to the board. Told them, guys, you don't have to ask my permission to talk. Everyone can talk to everyone. And at all levels in the company, because I was never afraid there will be any kind of politics behind my back or anything. So it gives a lot of flexibility and freedom when you have this type of...
That's very interesting. So to play it back, you had no problem having your VP of sales talk to a board member. Yeah, which is for anybody listening to this, one of the there's certainly a spectrum of reactions, and a lot of CEO feel like they will need to control.
Yeah, they will go and be controlling.
Yeah,
and also I've seen with the people that I hired later, more seasoned executives. Board acts a little bit like they are fearsome of the board, and a lot of what they do is for them to look good in front of the board. I never had this, and I always told my boards, guys, we are here to discuss open things on the table. I don't care so much to praise ourselves, but I need your help to help me fix the dirty things in the company.
Did that translate into how you ran boards? Would you focus board meetings on specific issues?
Yes, we ran boards mostly about really about issues. Of course, it was typical strategic things, numbers, product, but putting up front what is not working was always part of my strategy to talk with the board.
How was the evolution from European company to US company? You all moved to New York, opened an office in 2017. 17.
Yes.
So, what was the process?
We were never truly an European company. So, starting out of Romania has the advantage that Romania has no market. So we had to think globally, and remotely. I didn't have really money to travel to meet customers. This is actually funny. In our first enterprise customer that we signed, I think it was fall of 2015. First, it was like a 100K deal. It was Swiss company called Swiss Re. It's pretty significant company. And they told me, we were talking about negotiation, the agreement, but so I really expected they to sign. So they told me, then before we sign, we'd like to meet you in person. And I was surprised. I said, why? So then I realized they wanted to see if this is the real person behind. So I think this is when I had one of my first few business trips at that time. So I flew to Zurich and I met them and they signed and seeing the discussion. But it was unusual for me. So we were dealing worldwide. We had GE was one of the first American customers. We signed GE in March 2016. Good deal at that time, like 200K, all remote. I didn't go to America for that one. And so we were prepared to do global business. I moved to New York. So I debated for a while between London and New York. But then I realized that you have to be in your largest market. And it's better to be close to the next to be investors. And it's better to put your leadership team in a talent pool geography, which there is no one compared to US really in terms of talent pool.
Yeah.
So it was a good decision. And
was a choice? Yeah, was a choice of New York versus San Francisco, somewhere else obvious?
San Francisco was it's too far away. I think for our global business, time zone doesn't help you when you do global business. It's not really so well connected globally. I think from flying perspective, and we are not so big in tech at that point. We are our interest was much more into the financial service industry. So I think New York and East Coast was a good choice. And why New York? I think New York it's a great city to be here. It's a lot of it's intense. It's fun to be. I don't regret my choice to put a little bit unusual, especially 2017.
Yeah, less so today. In part thanks to you as a. I think companies like you and
there's been a few companies, Datadog, and that started to be relevant at that time.
Yes, exactly. But what started
MongoDB,
but in terms of like companies from Europe coming to New York, you were you really showed the way.
Yeah,
and I think you inspired a number of other companies to do that today, which has been great.
But in the same time, we didn't establish in New York and then try to do only US. What was unique to us is, despite our small size, and not raising Series A, so it was we were a very small company. We went globally. Japan in 2017 was a country that brought us more revenue than US.
Yes.
So and we were lucky to expand into Japan.
Did you go direct or through a partner? That's the usual question. So Japan being the second largest software market in the world.
We went through a partner in Japan initially, but I was lucky to meet a Japanese guy that has become a bit later the one running our business in Japan, and he was instrumental to put us in front of large customers. And to tell you also an anecdote that I don't think I ever said it before. So I was in Tokyo for the first time, and I was meeting that that guy from SMBC. His name is Yamamoto-san. We've built really a good partnership and friendship later on. But when I met him first time, I didn't have cards. Really. So going to Japan, I had to print business cards. So at that time, I had only my Romanian phone number. So I thought it's not a problem to put. It turned out that this kind of scared him. How can I do? I'm one of the mega banks in Japan. How can I do business with a company based out of Romania? And then what I did the next day, I went to Skype and I bought a K number to have to put it on my business cards. And anyway, it's here we started to get his trust with our product and then with our dedication, and we hired people in Japan and started to really offer them a lot of free support. Always our politics was really complete customer centricity. And it's very easy to say this, but it's not so easy to practice it.
So how does that manifest? Is that a question of customer support? Is it a question of like how your product roadmap evolves?
It's a question of the product roadmap, and not even the product roadmap, but it was a question of fixing the bugs in the product. Developer, especially when you run so fast, developers are attached of building the next shiny thing. So, and many times companies have the temptation to bring a feature but not finish it. Go to the next experiment, so you end up with an ugly mess, especially in an enterprise when you have a long list of features, not in consumer. So this Japanese client, actually by their presence and the way of asking, so they commanded certain respect, and especially to our developers. So it was the first time when I went to them and I said, guys, this time I don't take any bullshit from you. They said something, you go do, I deliver. I don't want to enter into endless debates of what's priority, what's not. These guys are paying us our salary. So let's stop all this, futile debates.
So you'd reprioritize the team to focus on this as opposed to
focus on, they help to really deliver a strong product.
Mm-hmm. And presumably you would draw a line somewhere between not being taken too far apart from the roadmap by the customer, because that's a tension you find in startups.
Our product was always very horizontal. We even today, I don't think we have a line of code built for one customer. Mm-hmm. Maybe that was lucky, because when you build the key to build a horizontal product is to identify common building blocks, but they apply to many industries too.
Yeah.
And in our case, the building blocks were so obvious. The way we operate as person is the same if I am in healthcare industry or if I am in the banking industry. In the way I'm using computers, and I'm using the same paradigms. For us, was in a way simple to just identify the building blocks of how people use computers, formalize them in software, and then apply it to all the industries.
It's actually a perfect segue. Let's talk about the product today. So I read somewhere so this started with RPA, as you said, so effectively creating software robots mimicking what people did, and that's that has evolved now into like a full suite of different things, and you have 3 layers. You have discover, automate, and operate.
Yes.
So I think that would be a really interesting way to go about it. So the discovery layer, there's like all those terms that people may have heard, but it's unless you're very much in the industry, it's hard to separate one from the other. There's process mining, there's task mining. What do all those terms mean, and what does UiPath do for that layer?
So first of all, why discovery of processes is important? Because even if it's counterintuitive, in large enterprises, there is no single repository of truth and knowledge about what they are doing. You have to help them to understand even their processes, to discover, in a way, what they are doing. And because it's a lot of actually oral knowledge there. It's small groups, it's big groups, it's many manual tasks. Maybe only 3-4 people in the company have an idea of what they are doing. It's also large processes like hire to retire. It's a very big process spanning all the departments almost.
And maybe at that point, just to make it super obvious to anyone listening to this, a process is just like a series of actions in the enterprise. So
Yes.
it could be
a series of steps.
Yes.
Yes.
Onboarding is a process. Employee onboarding, replying to a customer is a process. Everything is a process.
Paying an invoice, ordering a product.
Yep. All of those are a series of steps that you.
Series of steps and a series of also approval, verifications, validations between different departments.
So process mining is a way.
So process mining is a way to actually look at the system of records and figure out what transactions happen in a system of records in a more visual way. So you plug into SAP, for instance, and then you can show all the transactions happening in a very nice process graph that shows all the path in a process.
So meaning you put a software agent that's going to monitor what happens?
No. In process mining, it doesn't work like this. You basically extract all the information from the logs, from the system logs, and then you transform them into a format that is understood by process mining.
And the output is a graph?
The output is a graph, yeah. The input the format of a process mining is kind of very simple. It has a timestamp of the transaction. It's the user that made the transaction, and it's the business activity of the transaction and some business data. Of course, it's a little more complicated, but this is the essential. And based on this, you understand all the steps and how a transaction flows through the system. And so it helps you and you understand also the timing between different steps. You understand where the process can take more time that is necessary. You can compare with the ideal version of what you want. So you can do a lot of monitoring, optimization, and you can also understand what are the steps in a big process that are prone to automate them.
And the other two, task mining and communications mining?
Yeah. Task mining is the ability to install an agent on user's desktop and monitor what they are doing and figure out the repetitive patterns in a manual task. Mm-hmm. I think we are working right now to actually combine better task mining and process mining. In a way, you start with process mining. You understand that in one particular step, let's say people are paying they are processing invoices, but it takes a long time. So then you can deploy an agent to the user group that process invoices and then it monitors them for a few days, and then we have AI that looks there and understand the patterns and figure out what they are doing exactly. So then you can go automate or maybe optimize in a different way, but you combine system data with also manual steps that people are using. So this is how you have like a 360 view of what's going on in an enterprise. Communication mining, it's something that it's more about understanding emails or messages that flow in an enterprise. And usually most processes will start with an external communication. A lot of time it happens on email or maybe on using a ticketing software or some kind of chat version. But we bought 2 years ago a company based in London that
Was that Infer?
Reinfer.
Reinfer.
So they were one of the first startups that built this transformer-based machine learning to understand email messages. Email, it's a form of short message, not long message, but it's a form of short messages, but also it's threaded. So it's interesting to understand the communication back and forth and to classify and to extract information from emails. And to us made a lot of sense because we can combine communication mining that understands the message with document understanding, because a lot of time you will have also some kind of attachments. Extract, process both messages and documents, extract the information, understanding the intent, and then run an automation. And then using Gen AI, you can go and reply back, create a contextual response to the customer. Customer can be internal or external customers for an enterprise.
So the automation is a combination of different. So we just spoken about the discover layer, the automation layer. Then that's a series of different things depending on the task. It can be document processing. It can be creating a software bot. It can be replying.
Essentially, our technology works by taking a process as is, and automating as much of that process. Sometimes you emulate people. Sometimes you replace maybe some manual things that people are doing with some APIs calls. Or at large, it's mostly about emulating what people are doing. Because in communication mining, for instance, like many companies will set up some kind of shared email inboxes, and customers will just go there and complain or ask questions. And then you will have people monitoring the emails and put them in different folders. And then there will be specialized people per folder taking them and replying and doing certain actions. We'll basically use software to classify and then put them in folders, and then from folders maybe running automations to extract more information and so on.
And what's the operation layer? It's the analytics and the testing and to make sure that the system performs at scale.
Yeah, that was actually really one of the breakthrough that we understood in when we went in India at that initial customer. Before that, our focus was to deliver one automation that was working well. So one developer, one product, build an automation running on that machine, or scheduling on one machine. But so we focus so much on making it very reliable. And it was actually a good approach. Because if you start too big of a system, day one, you will end up with the spaghetti and nothing works. We mastered this piece and it was world-class, best ever, and it's still the best in the industry. To build one automation, run it reliably. What we understood there, that this is not enough. If you have to build 100 automations and they have to depend one on the other, and they have to run at certain times, and they have to run on different types of machines with different types of software, different types of security permissions. So then we've built all this, a product called Orchestrator that is capable of scaling hundreds and thousands of automations or thousands of runtimes and make the communication between them via queues. And you have, it's a pretty sophisticated system.
Let's dive into AI. So as we were just saying, it was actually super interesting, which I hadn't realized, is that you started as an AI company through computer vision, and now AI seems to be everywhere in the product. So you use AI for analysis of communication mining, and you just said you use generative AI to start replying to stuff as well.
Well,
So I guess what is the latest in terms of like building AI into the product?
Generative AI, it's in a way the missing piece in RPA and even broadly in automation. Because first of all, it lets you understand way better unstructured content. So it helps closing some pieces in a process they couldn't automate before. So therefore that was the first use for us of Gen AI into our document understanding piece. And we have a generative extraction technology right now that help extract information from unstructured documents. Can even help to build better models for semi-structured documents. And one of our fastest growing business is this document understanding business. And we combine specialized models with generative model to basically deliver an end product to the customer that improves over time.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the things where Gen AI doesn't work well today, it doesn't learn, in all fairness. All the fine training, it's more context grounding, large context windows, but it's not learning. You don't go to OpenAI and you modify their weights. This is not how it works. But with a specialized model, that's possible. So what we are doing for our customers, for instance, they want to process invoices. I know it sounds trivial, but some of the invoices are so complicated, even a human user would find it difficult to understand all the relations and to extract information. So what we do, we have base models that are pretty good, but then we have to learn from samples. And we pair Gen AI to tag samples, help people to tag better documents, to create training sets that work well. So we accelerate using Gen AI, creating of the training sets. And then we use LLM-based dedicated models. So we build something on the top of T5, which is people will say it's a little bit of older model, but we believe that encoder-decoder models are better for when you deal with semi-structured documents than decoder-only models. So we are using T5 as our own LLM, but then we retrain T5. We use LoRa-based approach to minimize a little bit the training and the runtime performance. But in the end, we will beat, any performance of GPT-4 or whatever, and they will be extremely reliable. And they are not prone to any hallucination or to spitting out customer information.
Yeah, it's incredibly refreshing to hear this, right? Because there's a little bit of a dominant narrative around the fact that, the GPTs of the world or the Llama 3 are going to do all things for all people, but the reality is a lot more complex than that.
I don't think so, because I think nature is pretty smart. And if you look at how our brain operates, we have a very good cognitive engine, but we are not using that cognitive engine to do trivial tasks. It's way too expensive. if you want to learn to swim or to play tennis, you start using your cognitive engine. Maybe you go to a coach, you understand the movements, but as you learn, you actually build like a dedicated model that will help you do this unconsciously. You don't think it, because sometimes you don't even have time to think. So it has to be extremely fast and less expensive in terms of energy. I don't see any reason why this is not gonna be the case in the real world. So it's kind of obvious for me.
Yeah, I love that analogy. Right? Like you have a large language model built in your mind, which is a language to get to the tennis court, and then you have your small language model
that helps you
to play
hit
tennis,
the ball.
and you only use it then.
Yeah.
And then you stop using it and you use the general language model as you exit the court.
Yeah.
Sorry, I love that analogy. Okay. And is that DocPath or is that different? Like you had, there were those announcements of two LLM models, DocPath and CompPath.
Yeah.
Is that those or is that separate?
Yes, they are. Yes, this is what I refer to. They are these T5 based LLMs, but trained with a lot of the data that
Great.
we gather.
Great. And then there is a UiPath AI Center, which enables customer to bring their own models. Is that right?
Yes, but it's really it's a thing that models customized by our customers, but starting from base models that we build. It's not really intended to take anything from Hugging Face and then just run it in AI Center. But it runs well our own models customized for the needs of customers.
And then another thing I read while prepping for this was the AI trust layer, which was announced just recently. What is that?
We discovered that many of our customers actually use multiple LLMs, and they want to have some governance and security layer, so like an abstraction layer in front of the LLMs. So maybe they start with GPT-4, but who knows, maybe Claude is better for a particular task or not. So instead of creating, again, a little bit of spaghetti in the application code, you rather use this abstraction layer, and then you configure at the abstraction layer for different calls, what kind of LLMs are you using. And we can provide also better services like anonymization of data. We can do smart things. Even if you send an invoice to GPT-4 to extract some information, what we can do, for instance, we can digitize the document and we can replace all the sensitive information with, I don't know, with synthetic information, get it back, and then redo the translation when we go to the customer. So it's important to have this in-between layer. Helps with a lot of things.
So obviously a natural next evolution of all of this is the acceleration of AI agents. So where you have processes, but then you build a glue between the processes of agents making decisions based on whatever the input is. How do you think about this?
I think this is gonna be maybe the biggest transformation we are seeing in the enterprise space that would be based on LLMs. To me, let me start with the generic, my generic thinking about where are LLMs today. They help a lot with the increasing productivity of clerical workers, but they are not transformational. Why I think they are not transformational? Because you cannot know it's a tool. It's a user-based technology. You cannot use an LLM in an enterprise production in an autonomous fashion today. It's simply impossible because of the hallucination aspect and the lack of reliability. In a way, I think to get to an incredible transformation, we don't need smarter LLMs. I think the LLMs that are today are smart enough. we need them to be predictable, reliable. Because think about, even if you put in the shoes of an enterprise and you hire a person, I don't think many people would shy away from hiring like a genius that is extremely unpredictable. They show up to work only, one day a month, and they have all the. It's for most of the job that doesn't work. You will need smart enough people, but reliable, diligent. I'm not an expert in the field, but I believe that this is we need another giant leap of innovation to get there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure just throwing compute and increasing the number of GPUs without some fundamental discovery, it's gonna create this.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why, in my opinion, the first we will get to autonomous agents, but by going through, first we will have to have these digital assistants that work under people's supervision. And so this is where this is a field, I think many people refer as large action models. My instinct is the first wave of deployment will be really in a user-based mode. It's an user-assisted technology. It's like self-driving cars, which is an assisted technology. This is where we focus right now.
And what's your strategy for this? Is that something that you're developing internally? Is that something that you're looking to partner? How do you go about it?
We have a dual strategy. We have something called Project Foundation. So we are building internally, this dual model that understands both text and images, that we want to put at the foundation of many of our task-based automation. So it's aimed to replace document understanding, computer vision, the way we interact with the screens. But we would like also, we are partnering with one of the most interesting startups right now, the one we are both investing in, and to build really this next digital agents that will be capable actually of combining knowledge of a task or a process, maybe later on, with the capability of acting and replicating what a human user would do to complete that task. So in this way, we will have to learn how an accountant works,
Mm-hmm.
how an auditor works. And that paired with some of our technology that is capable of acting on user interface and their ability to plan, I have the knowledge of a task, and then I can plan how that task should be completed. I can create a list of steps. And then carrying on these steps using UiPath technology, I think it's an amazing combination.
What does AI look like at UiPath in terms of team and organization of the team? Who does AI?
Basically, we have 3 centers where our AI teams are located. We have started initially in Seattle and Bucharest. The guy that leads our AI is based in Seattle, and they are doing mostly the computer vision part, documents understanding. They are also building our autopilots. This is a co-pilot type of product that aims to create faster automation, to help developers build based on a prompt, create a skeleton of automations. In London, based on the Reinfor team, we are building this project foundation that is the next generation of multi-model systems that we want to put as the base of everything we are doing.
Maybe for the last part of this conversation, switching to the go-to-market side of things, how important was the partnering aspect of this? You seem to have built very strong relationship with a couple of partners, and that seemed to have been a big part of the acceleration. What was that story, and any lessons learned there?
Partnership was instrumental. We couldn't have entered big enterprises doors without partners. It was really absolutely no chance back in the day. But what I also realized around 2016 is that partners are not gonna fight for your own destiny. They are very opportunistic in the end, and they want to make money. So the same competitor that I talked to in the context of the India phase, they made early on a decision to go completely indirect in their go-to-market. I think that was a huge mistake. So we went indirect via partners, but we built, and I'm a big believer in a direct sales force that will fight for your own destiny. In our case, partners are not so important for us for reselling the technology. Partners are important to open the door and to implement our technology. But to win the deal, it's us. It's rare that a partner can win the deal for us. So this is, I've seen that's the winning combination, to put your direct salespeople, to put the partners working together to win deals.
Mm-hmm. And we're talking mostly about services/consulting partners?
Yes, services consulting partners.
Mm-hmm. So the
technology partnership largely didn't work for us. And I think it's extremely difficult to make a technology partnership working. It has to be such a huge alignment at the leadership level between two companies that it really works. That's my learning. This is why I'm also investing in a few companies, and this is what I tell them. Even recently, I'm talking to one of our portfolio companies that is on the verge of doing a partnership with a much larger company, and my advice to him is build a strong relationship with the leadership team, and especially with the CEO of that company. This is how a piece of paper doesn't make a partnership. Most partnership are just marketing announcement, hype.
Mm-hmm.
But if there is no personal connection, it's not will on both parties to make it happen, it's not going to work.
What have you learned over the years in terms of recruiting the best salespeople for the kind of sales you've done, big ticket items, long sales cycles?
I have so many thoughts. One of the issues I think a technical founder has is that they will never understand sales to the bare metal. Like, I understand software to the bare metal. I can talk to anyone in UiPath and I can challenge anyone. So I'm a pretty detailed guy in my software reviews. And so I go and I ask questions until I get to the root of the problem, or challenge them, in very much details. And I think this is what you should do in go-to-market as well. What I cannot do to that level, I have an understanding, but it's too high level. So in a way, I always struggle to hire the best salespeople. What I've seen in UiPath and in some other companies, there are, especially in the sales leadership, what I've seen, there are two types of leaders. Are operational-oriented leaders and customer-oriented leaders. Ideally, you'll need kind of both, but it depends who is on the top. And the culture will be reflected by the person you hire on the top. Initially, for a startup, I think it's operationally doesn't matter, in my opinion. All it matters, it's build an extreme customer-centric culture. So you need people that understands that you have to do everything for a customer. Even making quarters, it's not so important. Building customer relationships is all that matters. To us, initially, I think I made the good call to hire not professional sales reps, but rather consultative type of people. My first sales people were actually, look, for instance, the first guy that was building EMEA for us. And then our leader in Japan. They were both consultants as their background. So that helped because these people are really they are trained to do what's best for the customer. Next wave, I realized that we don't treat sales as an engineering. We were treating sales more like an art. So, but that doesn't scale. So next, I hired the guy that had very strong operational rigor, and he put a good foundation for us to structure the sales organization, to assign territories, quotas, comp plan. So that was when we put. But then we started to lose a little bit the customer centricity. It's always that struggle in my mind. How can you build a sales org that will preserve extreme customer focus, but will have the discipline of an engineering organization? It's a tension that we have to be very attentive to that tension, because the leaders will go in one direction or the other. I haven't seen yet someone that is both, it's equally strongly operationally or from a customer-facing perspective.
And maybe to close, one remarkable and extremely rare thing about people like you is the ability to go from, 5 people in an apartment, maybe not your apartment, in an apartment in Bucharest to, for a while, a public company CEO. How did you, at a personal, professional level, navigate that journey and sort of scale yourself into a leader of a public company?
I always had, and I still have the imposter syndrome. That helped me because I was always coming to the table with the idea I am not the smartest, but I am the dumbest, person on the table. So that helped me with, managing my ego, lowering my expectations, always not being even afraid to ask stupid questions. What this acronym is, that some people would not ask because they think it's expecting of them to. And to me, life is a learning journey. When I discovered that in any domain you will find things to learn that are very entertaining. Look, so I started as a software engineer. I was very proud that I was coding like systems, server systems using C and C++. In Microsoft, I was working for SQL Server, which is really amazing database engine. It's a lot. I met, I think, even today, the best engineers that I met in my life. The smartest people were there. But then building the company, I had to learn a lot of other things. I've become a copywriter. I wrote a lot of ads for the company. I learned Google Analytics and, spending the dollars. And then I took, Microsoft Word license agreement, and then I had to copy it and transform it to build our first legal agreement. I couldn't afford to pay lawyer, but it helps. And I kind of like it. It's nice to learn different things. And then I started to learn sales. And to me, one advice that I give to entrepreneurs is that, especially in enterprise business, sales is as important as the technology. And it's not enough for them to understand the basic of sales. They need to love it. Because if you don't love it, you are not gonna hire really good people. Maybe to your previous question, the key to hire great salespeople is to love them. So they feel your love and your understanding, and you don't treat them only like it's a coin-operated machine. Because it isn't. It's the better salesperson is, the better they understand the customer and how to talk, how to explain their business, and how to. It's a very complex dynamic that happens in sales, and in a deal that is 6 to 9 months long. It's not simple. Look, but I think it's. And then it was the IPO process was very interesting to me. You learn quite a lot, because you still have the moment when you talk to private investors, you have a lot of time to explain them the business. When you talk to public investors, you have to be way more crisp, and you should tell the same story to everyone. You cannot deviate and give to some people more information or less information. So it was a great education for me to understand, and it helped me even with my the way I'm structuring my ideas. We had a really good IR person. I worked with her, quite a bit initially, and we worked together. How we present the information helped me quite a bit. And I always look back in time, and I'm asking myself, have I learned? Am I being transformed in the last 6 months? And if the answer is no, something is completely wrong.
What a journey. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. It's been an absolutely wonderful conversation. Thanks for doing it. Hi, it's Matt Turck again. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Mad Podcast. If you enjoyed it, we'd be very grateful if you would consider subscribing if you haven't already, or leaving a positive review or comment on whichever platform you're watching this or listening to this episode from. This really helps us build the podcast and get great guests. Thanks, and see you at the next episode.